Hi, my dear friends. Hopefully, all of you fine and safe. I am also be fine and safe, my dear friends. Dear friends, now I am going to be bring to your notice CA final IDT indirect tax laws amendments applicable for your December 2021 examination. Before commencing, presenting in front of you important announcement for Unacademy. CA Iconic Program, a flagship program for CA final aspirants. Under this Iconic Program, live mentoring platform LMP, wherein you have one-to-one doubt solving, evaluated test series, printed material from Unacademy educators as well as Yashas Academy educators. Discord community building platform is available in Iconic Program, which is a flagship program from Unacademy for CA final aspirants. Dear friends, now one-to-one live mentoring in Iconic has been launched. Give your exam preparation an extra edge with our new live mentoring platform LMP. Evaluated test series, give your exam preparation an extra edge with our latest addition in Iconic subscription. Iconic subscription, CA final group 1. While subscribing, please use my referral code RAFI LIVE, where you can get almost all 10% discount from the existing subscription price. RAFI LIVE, which provides to you 10% plot discount from the existing subscription. CA final group 2, also you can subscribe group wise using RAFI LIVE code to get 10% plot discount from the existing subscription. You can also subscribe Iconic subscription CA final combo group 1 and group 2 together using my code RAFI LIVE to get flat 10% discount from the existing subscription, which is with the best interest of our below students at large. Unacademy is offering, my dear friends. Make use of this particular Iconic subscription, which is above your plus subscription. If you already plus subscription holders, you can upgrade to Iconic subscription to get more benefits to crack the exam. With this, my dear friends, now I am presenting in front of you very important area. Just I will take hardly 60 minutes. Within 60 minutes, I am going to be cover the entire part of indirect tax laws CA final amendments for the December 2021 examination. By diagrammatic presentation, wherever possible with illustrative examples, I am presenting now the CA final indirect tax laws paper number 8 amendments applicable for the December 2021 examination, which are as follows, my dear friends. First, I am referring here part 1, goods and services tax amendments under the input tax credit chapter. Under the input tax credit chapter, there was restriction to avail the input tax credit on those invoices which has not been uploaded by suppliers in their GSTR1 return. It was 10%. Now it has been reduced to 5%. Rule number 36, sub rule number 4. Restriction on availment of ITC under the CGST rules 2017 are as follows. Restriction on availment of ITC is as follows. Invoices or debit note has not been uploaded by a supplier in his GSTR 1 return. If so, 5% of the eligible input tax credit available in respect of the uploaded invoices uploaded into the GSTR 1 return, invoices or debit notes, compare with the actual eligible input tax credit available in respect of the invoices not uploaded in the GSTR 1. Among the two, whichever is lesser value only allowed. Meaning thereby, out of 1 lakh rupee of input tax credit, 60,000 invoices, 60,000 rupees of input tax credit invoices uploaded. On 60,000, 5%. On 60,000, 5%. Because invoice uploaded by supplier in the GSTR 1 return. 5% of invoices uploaded on which GST 60,000, 5%, which is rupees 3,000, or the invoice which is not uploaded on which input tax credit 40,000, 3,000 or 40,000, whichever is less. Which is less? 3,000. That is only allowed. However, invoices uploaded into the GSTR 1 return on which input tax credit rupees 60,000 allowed. 60,000 plus the 3,000. Totally 63,000 only allowed. The balance will be allowed out of rupees 40,000 invoice rupees of input tax credit invoices which is yet to be uploaded, will be availed only when the supplier uploaded in the respect to GSTR 1 return, that time can be availed the ITC, the balance amount. Further, my dear friends, bringing to your notice this 5% restriction under rule number 36 sub number 4 is not applicable in case where IGST paid on import of goods, IGST paid on import of services which is under reverse charge, input service distributor distribute the input tax credit according to section 20 of the CGST Act to their other units having the same PAN number with the different GST numbers. Input supplies received from non-resident taxable person. In all these 4 cases, 5% restriction on availing input tax credit is not applicable for those invoices which is not uploaded in the GSTR 1 return. Further, my dear friends, bringing to your notice very important amendment under the input tax credit chapter, which is as follows, my dear friends. In the input tax credit chapter, a new rule number 86 capital B brought into force, where with effect from 1st January 2021, new rule 86B has been inserted which restricts the use of credit available in electronic credit ledger. The said rule restricts the use of input tax credit by more than 99% against output tax liability. This restriction is applicable for taxpayers whose taxable supply other than exempted supply and zero rated supply exceeds 50 lakhs in a month. That is very important to note, my dear friends. They given here a important concept. If I have input tax credit 100 lakhs in the electronic credit ledger, my output tax liability, let us say 80 lakhs. While paying 80 lakhs output tax liability, I can use entire my 100 lakhs of credit. But the law says if you have excess credit than that of output tax liability, where your turnover into domestic tariff area taxable turnover other than exempted turnover, other than export turnover, taxable turnover into domestic tariff area per month which has been exceeded 50 lakhs. In that case, such an assessee, while paying the GST of 80 lakhs on output supply, the input tax is 100 lakhs, fully not allowed. Therefore, out of 80 lakhs, 99% of 80 lakhs of output tax liability can be utilized from the input tax credit. 1% of output tax liability, namely on 80 lakhs 1%, on 80 lakhs 1%, 80,000 should have to pay by electronic cash ledger. Got the clarity, my dear friends? So, dear friends, I too given one example here. By lifting from the circular of the CBIC, the total value of interstate supply of Shiva and Sons for the month of March 2021 is 100 lakh. Said supply is taxable 18%, IGST payable 18 lakhs. Thus, total output tax liability of Shiva and Sons 18 lakhs. While paying this output tax liability, I have the electronic credit ledger which is rupees 20 lakhs. Can I use enter value? No, because my turnover in the month exceeds 50 lakhs, which is taxable turnover other than exempted, other than zero rate supply, more than 50 lakhs turnover per month. In that case, I supposed to be pay minimum 1% of my output tax liability through electronic cash ledger. Therefore, 18%, 18 lakhs on which 1% minimum, 18,000 should pay electronic cash ledger. Balance out of 18 lakhs, out of 18 lakhs of output liability, 1% if I reduce, the balance 17 lakh 82,000 can be used from my available credit of 20 lakhs to utilize for payment of my output tax liability. 18 lakhs minus 17 lakh 82,000, the balance will be 18,000, which is none other than 1% of my output tax liability, which I bound to pay through electronic cash ledger. It is applicable only when the turnover of a person exceeds 50 lakhs into domestic tariff area other than exempted supply, other than zero rated supply. That is important to note in the given case, my dear friends. Further, very important area. The said rule is not applicable in the following cases, meaning thereby rule number 86 capital B is not applicable in the following cases. What are they? They are as follows. The taxpayer, proprietor, karta, managing director, partner, whole-time director, member of the managing committee of association or the board of trustees, and so on and so forth, have paid income tax exceeding 1 lakh in the preceding 2 financial years. This rule number 86 can be not applicable. Where the taxpayer has received a refund of unutilized input tax credit exceeding 1 lakh in the preceding financial year on account of export or supplies to a special economic zone, in that case, this restriction of 1% to pay on output tax liability mandatorily by electronic cash ledger, rule number 86 capital B not applicable. Further, point number C, where the taxpayer have received a refund of unutilized input tax credit exceeding 1 lakh in the preceding financial year on account of inverted duty structure, section 54 subsection 3 clause 2. Inverted duty structure mean the inward supply a higher rate, outward supply lesser rate, thereby I got excess credit. Such a refund I claim more than 1 lakh rupee in the preceding financial year. For me, in the current year, rule number 86 can be not applicable. Further, my dear friends, the taxpayer has discharged his liability towards output tax through the electronic cash ledger on account of which is more than 1% of the total output liability applied cumulatively up to the said month in the current year, the taxpayer has discharged his tax liability, towards output tax through electronic cash ledger for an amount which is more than 1% of the total output tax liability applied cumulatively up to the said month. In that case, this particular rule number 86 can be further not applicable. Taxpayer is a government, taxpayer is the public sector undertaking, PSU, local authority or a statutory body. Rule number 86 will be not applicable, or otherwise the commissioner or any officer authorized by him on behalf of may remove the said restriction after such verification safeguard as he may deem fit. If the department officer at commissioner level feels that you are not come under the category of rule number 86 capital B, then that fellow can use entire credit while paying the output tax liability. Further, my dear friends, bringing to a notice the important concept under the registration amendments which are applicable for your December 2021 examination. December 2021 examination of CA final amendments in the chapter registration under the GST are as follows. The entire part I am bringing to a notice. Just look and understand, my dear friends, the entire concept flow of registration. Applicant, first and foremost, applicant here should submit application for registration from GST REG 01 within 30 days from the date of need arises through GST network portal to the department. Network portal, once satisfied with my submissions, with the credentials of my name, my cell number, my PAN number, my email ID are proper, the system will generate an acknowledgement from GST REG 02 which is issued by the GST network portal itself, a non-statutory function of the GST network portal it is. Now the department officer, on account of verifying the application, he found any deficit. If it is yes, he may return that to you by saying that, by issuing a show cause notice. Proper officer will issue a show cause notice in the form GST REG 03 within 7 working days. Earlier it was 3 working days, now revised as an amendment, within 7 working days. Within 7 working days, will issue the show cause notice if the found deficit in the application for registration in the form GST REG 03 from the date of submission of the application for registration, and the show cause notice reply should be made by the applicant. Applicant should reply in the form GST REG 04 within 7 working days from the date of the receipt of the show cause notice by giving clarifications. Department, once satisfied, found no deficits, then further proceeding here, applicant undergone Aadhaar number authentication and also submit biometric information along with photograph and other know your customer KYC documents successfully. If not, Aadhaar authentication not taken place cases, the time limit to issue the show cause notice not 7 days, it has been revised to 30 days. The proper officer will issue show cause notice in the form GST REG 03 within 30 days. Earlier it was 21 days. Aadhaar authentication not taken place. It is 21 days, now replaced as 30 days to issue the show cause notice in the case where the applicant is not authenticated the Aadhaar. If he is not willing to authenticate Aadhaar, in that case, the time limit to issue the show cause notice presently, after the revision, after the amendment, within 30 days from the date of submission of the application for registration, issue the show cause notice form GST REG 03, and for which application should be respond. Once the response is proper, the proper officer further proceed. The registration shall be granted in the form GST REG 06 within 7 working days of, earlier it was 3 working days of submission of the application if there was Aadhaar authentication taken place cases. If the Aadhaar authentication not taken place cases, if the applicant does not opt for authentication of Aadhaar, the registration shall be granted within 30 days. Earlier it was 60 days, now reduced to 30 days of submission of the application after physical verification of the place of the business in the presence of the said applicant. So, if the department officer satisfied with physical verification of the premises in the presence of the applicant in the absence of Aadhaar authentication case, time limit to grant certificate of registration form GST REG 06 is 30 days from the date of receipt of the application. Earlier it was 60 days, now reduced to 30 days. If the proper officer not satisfied with your reply, if the proper officer found further deficits even after your reply, in that case, last but not the least, point number 9, proper officer if not satisfied with the applicant reply, he will pass the order of rejection of the application from granting the registration, namely form GST REG 05. This is what the amendments taken place, especially at the time of registration, obtaining the registration in the recent past, which is applicable for your December 2021 examination of CF final. Further, my dear friends, biometric authentication means what? Once you authenticate the Aadhaar, you are permitting the department officer to access your biometric information, your fingerprints, your eye particular, face particular, coding, scanning, this and all what you given when you obtain Aadhaar authentication, the data will be accessible by the department of GST if need arises. You are permitting to access your Aadhaar details to the department. It's called Aadhaar authentication. If the Aadhaar authentication not taken places, physical verification will takes place. After having the physical verification of the premises of the applicant in the presence of the applicant, the department will grant the certificate of registration. In the case where physical verification takes place, the registration form GST REG will be as follows. Registration shall be granted in form GST REG 06 where the documents are in order within 30 days from the date of issue of the application. A deficiency memo will be issued where further documented circumstances or clarifications are required in form GST REG 03. That means to say that either one will take place within 30 days from the date of submission of the application if the Aadhaar authentication not taken place cases. Aadhaar authentication taken place cases, the certificate of registration form GST REG 06 will be granted to you within 7 working days from the date of making the application for registration. Otherwise, within 7 working days, the department will issue a show cause notice. That means, if going for Aadhaar authentication, getting certificate of registration will be easier than that of not authenticating the Aadhaar. Further, my dear friends, persons or class of persons are totally exempted from Aadhaar authentication. Who are they? One by one. A non-citizen of India, a non-citizen of India, a department or establishment of the central government or state government or a local authority or a statutory body or a public sector undertaking PSU or a particular foreign embassy approved international organization in India which required to obtain the registration in the name of unique identification number, UIN number. For them, Aadhaar authentication not warranted. Deemed registration. Now, earlier within 3 working days from the date of the making the application, if the department not responded by granting the certificate of registration, not issue the show cause notice. In that case, after expiry of 3 working days, it will be treated as deemed to be registered. Am I right? Now, the 3 working days has been replaced as 7 working days from the date of the receipt of the application. The department not granted certificate of registration within 7 working days, nor issued the show cause notice within 7 working days from the date of the receipt of the application. In that case, it is deemed to have been registered if the applicant opted for Aadhaar authentication. In the case of Aadhaar authentication not opted cases, the department has the time limit to issue the certificate of registration over a period of 30 days from the date of the receipt of the application, or has the time limit of 30 days to issue show cause notice in the form GST RAG 03, as the case may be. If the officer neither issue the certificate of registration nor issue the show cause notice in the form GST RAG 03 within 30 days from the date of the receipt of the application from the applicant, in that case, after the expiry of 30 days time period, it deemed to have been registered if the applicant not opted for Aadhaar authentication. Got the clarity, my dear friends? Like that. Furthermore, my dear friends, amendments in the registration chapter, cancellation by a GST officer, registration cancellation, how possible? In what are the cases? If the registered person has violated any of GST provisions of law, a composition registered person has not filed the return for 3 consecutive quarters, or a normal registered assessee who has not filed the return for consecutively for 6 months, or a registered person who has not been commenced his business for a period of 6 months from the date of registration, or if the registration is obtained by a fraudulent model or by way of fraudulent method, acting or providing dubious information, bogus information given and obtained fraudulently the registration, noticed by the department and my registration liable for cancellation. Further, my dear friends, from 22nd December 2020 onwards, there is an amendment further. If a registered person avails the input tax credit in violation of the provision of the section 16 of the Act rules made thereunder. What do you mean by section 16? Where we have section 16 subsection 2, subsection 3, subsection 4. What do you mean by that? Section 16 subsection 2 class A. There must be possession of documentary evidence to avail the input tax credit. A tax invoice, there must be possession of tax invoice for receipt of the goods, receipt of services. Section 16(2)(b), goods or services should have been received or deemed to have been received. Section 16 subsection 2 class C, the supplier should have been made the payment to department. Section 16 subsection 2 class D, which talks about the recipient who want to avail the ITC should have filed the return properly as per section 39 of the CGST Act. Section 16 subsection 3, depreciation on the capital goods, I should not have been availed inclusive of GST for my income tax purpose. Depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act 1962, block of assets, I should not have been availed inclusive of GST. That means GST on capital goods should not have been capitalized for depreciation purpose under Income Tax Act. If so, I can avail the ITC. If I violated, my registration liable for cancellation. Section 16, Section 4, to avail the input tax credit, time limit has been given by 30th of the September of the succeeding financial year or by filing the annual return for the current financial year in the succeeding year, whichever is earlier, within which I should avail the input tax credit. If I have not availed, later on I availed fraudulently, then my registration liable for cancellation. Further, my dear friends, if a registered person furnishes the details of the outward supplies in form GST R1 for one or more tax period in excess of outward supplies declared in the GST R3B, fraudulent cases. Further, if a registered person violates of newly inserted rule number 86 sub number B, minimum 1% of output tax liability I should pay by my electronic cash ledger where my turnover in a month exceeds 50 lakhs other than exempted turnover, other than zero rated turnover. If I violated that, my registration liable for cancellation. Important point here, even some cases department generally shall not cancel the registration, without giving an opportunity of being heard. But now the amendment taken place in the recent past, applicable for your December 2021 exam, a registration of a person can be cancelled by the department even without giving an opportunity of being heard. How it is possible, sir? Opportunity of being should be given, no sir, before cancellation of registration. Generally, the department will provide opportunity of being heard before cancellation. There are some cases, fraudulent cases, fraudsters. They are very often committing the fraud, intention not to pay the tax, intention to evade the tax. There are some guys who may not having good intention. Their intention is to evade the tax, to cause the revenue loss. If their registration to cancel, if the department given opportunity of being heard, they may going to be cause huge loss to the department. In such cases, abnormal cases, if the department has sufficient evidence, the guy to whom registration, cancellation, if we give opportunity of being heard, he will escape and will going to cause more and more revenue loss. Such an impression drawn by the department officer now empowered to cancel the registration even without giving an opportunity of being heard. Is a new amended provision. In general, they will give opportunity of being heard before cancellation. In some fraudster cases, fraudulent assessee cases, they won't give opportunity of being heard before cancellation. Even without giving an opportunity of being cancellation, opportunity of being heard, the department is empowered to cancel the registration. No opportunity of being heard will be given where there is a significant difference or anomaly between outward supplies GSTR1 and GSTR3B. Further, where there is a significant difference or anomaly between the GSTR2A return and GSTR3B return, this should result in any contravention of to the provisions of the Act or rules made thereunder. Further, such suppression or intimation shall be sent to the taxpayer in his email ID requiring him and explain within 30 days as why his registration shall not be cancelled. Restrictions in case of suspension of GST registration is separate. So, in general, they will give opportunity of being heard before cancellation. If there is a significant differences between the output tax liability and the liability shown to pay by them at the time of filing the GSTR3B return, or there are significant difference between GSTR2A and 3B return. GSTR2A means the inward supply input tax credit return it is. Otherwise, in general, they will give opportunity of being heard. This is what I mentioned here. Further, to such suspension, an intimation shall be sent to the taxpayer in his email ID requiring him to explain within 30 days as to why his registration shall not be cancelled. Like that, 30 days time period can be issued after suspension of his registration. Further, my dear friends, registrations cancellation in this process, restrictions in case of suspension of the GST registration. A registered person whose registration has been cancelled can neither make any taxable supplies nor shall be granted any refund to him. Removal of suspension before completion of proceedings. The proper officer shall now have the option to revoke the suspension of registration anytime during the pendency of proceedings for cancellation. If the department officer is satisfied, he can revoke the cancellation of registration. Got the clarity, my dear friends? It is as simple as that. Now referring to you, my dear friends, tax invoice, where the amendment taken place, e-invoice has been introduced as a mandatory manner by reducing the threshold limit for applicability of e-invoice mandatorily. Aggregate turnover in any financial year exceeds 50 crore from 1st April 2021, e-invoice is made mandatory. Otherwise, it is not applicable. You cannot opt e-invoice voluntarily. Further, exemption from e-invoice, where it is turnover exceeds 50 crores, but e-invoice is not mandatory. What are the cases? The following list one can expect in the examination as a practical theory. Special economic zone units are not required to issue e-invoice except the special economic zone developers. If they are the special economic zone developers, e-invoice is mandatory if the turnover exceeds in the preceding financial year 50 crores. Further, my dear sir, insurer company, banking company, financial institutions, which includes non-banking financial companies, are excluded from the mandatory application of e-invoice. Further, goods transport agency exempted from issuing of e-invoice. Further, my dear friends, suppliers of passenger transportation services are exempted from the e-invoicing mandate. Further, suppliers of services by way of admission to exhibition of cinema photographic film in multiplex screens qualify from exemption from e-invoicing. E-invoicing is also be not applicable for nil rated or wholly exempted supplies. E-invoice also be not applicable for high C sales, which is not a sale at all under the GST, which is not a supply at all. Further, e-invoice is not applicable for import of goods where the bill of entry is presenting. E-invoice not required to issue. Free trade and warehousing zones are exempted from the payment of from the issuing of e-invoice. E-invoice is also be not applicable to invoices issued by the input service distributor ISD. E-invoice also be not mandatory where the supplies are received by notified persons from an unregistered persons, attracting the reverse charge under section 9(4), especially a particular builder liable to pay GST on transfer of floor space index, transfer of development rights, long-term lease more than 30 years, more than equal to 30 years lease. In that case, the builder promoter being recipient not paying the GST under the construction supply of services, he is liable to pay GST under RCM. In that case, e-invoice not required to be issued. E-invoice also be not required to issue through import of services. E-invoice does not applicable for them at all. Further, CBIC has notified that e-invoice system shall not apply to government department and local authorities. Government department and local authorities, e-invoice is not required, not warranted. CBIC has been notified. Further, e-invoice is mandatory. Some clarifications of the CBIC I brought to your notice, my dear friends, as illustratives, example and answers. First example, my dear, there is an SEZ unit and a regular DTA, domestic tariff area unit, under the same legal entity, having the same PAN number, 2 units, one in SEZ, one in non-SEZ. The aggregate turnover of the legal entity is more than 50 crore, considering both the GSTIN numbers together. However, the turnover of DTA unit is below 10 crore in a financial year 2021. In this scenario, a SEZ unit is exempt from e-invoicing, just now we covered. Whether e-invoicing will be applicable to DTA unit, the law says yes, because aggregate turnover all India basis, PAN based, exceeds 50 crores in the preceding financial year. In that case, the DTA unit, even the turnover in the preceding financial year 10 crores, whose aggregate turnover all India basis more than 50 crores, resulting that e-invoice is applicable mandatorily for DTA unit, set by the CBIC. Further, whether e-invoicing is applicable for supplies invoice reverse charge, where section 9(3) apply, recipient liable to pay GST. For a supplier, e-invoice required? Yes, it is not an exempted supply, it is a taxable supply in the hands of recipient. Therefore, the supplier who supplied his output supply, he should be mandatorily issue the e-invoice, even though on that output supply inwards the recipient liable to pay GST under RCM. Further, my dear friends, but one thing is very clear, the turnover of the supply in the preceding financial year should have been exceed the threshold limit of 50 crores. That is important. Advantages of e-invoice for business are as follows: auto reporting of invoice in the GST return, auto generation of e-way bill. E-invoice will also facilitate standardization and interoperability, leading to reduction of disputes among the transactions and parties, improve payment cycle, reduction of processing cost, and thereby greatly improve overall business efficiency, etc. Simple to say, our Government of India, the motto, the main objective is towards Digital India. To meet that objective, this and all, to simplify, easy of doing business is one of our guiding principle. Therefore, meeting these objectives, these guiding principles, Government of India, earlier they said 100 crores, now reduced to 50 crores from 1st April 2021 onwards, well applicable for the December 2021 examination, e-invoice concept. Further, my dear friends, how e-invoicing efficient from or is different from present system? Present system of invoicing, how different from e-invoicing? E-invoicing, how meritorial than that of present system? Both are one and same. Easy of doing is takes place. Because of e-invoicing, no reduction of GST. E-invoicing a facility which is made mandatory. Transparent way of approach of doing the business, where there is no much difference indeed. Registration process, the registered person continues to create their GST invoice on their own accounting, billing, ERP system. These invoices will now be reported to Invoice Reference Portal, IRP. On reporting, Invoice Reference Portal returns the invoice, namely e-invoice, with a unique invoice reference number, IRN. After digitally signing the e-invoice and adding a quick response code, QRC, then the invoice can be issued to the receiver along with QR code. Further, my dear friends, a GST invoice will be valid only with a valid IRN, this is invoice reference number. Invoice to be issued by specified registered person whose aggregate turnover in a preceding financial year exceeding 50 crore to an unregistered person, B2C, business to consumer invoice. To have dynamic reference code, QR code is important. Further, my dear friends, amendment in the invoice, tax invoice chapter, HSN code should be mentioned mandatorily 6 digits, where the turnover in the preceding financial year more than 5 crores. If it is up to 5 crores, you can have 4-digit coding in the invoice. The only exemption is given to the registered person having turnover up to 5 crore is that they need not mention the HSN code in the tax invoice in respect of supplies made to unregistered person. A person whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year not exceed 5 crore and he supplies the goods to an unregistered person, not required to mention the HSN code. Otherwise, such a person who supplied to a registered person minimum 4 digits, or a person who supplied to a particular registered person having a turnover exceeds 5 crores in the preceding financial year should be mentioned 6 digits of HSN code, harmonized system of nomenclature, is mandatory from 1st April 2021. Otherwise, the invoice liable for cancellation, the invoice not valid to avail the input tax credit, like that consequences. There may be general penalty under section 125 if you not mention HSN code, where mandated to mention but not mentioned, there is general penalty up to rupees 25,000 as per the CGST, equal amount is as per the SGST. Further, my dear friends, amendments in the tax invoice, referring to you here, my dear sir, validity period for e-way bill is now revised with effect from 1st January 2021 up to 200 kilometers. Validity period from relevant date 1 day in case of other than over dimensional cargo. What do you mean by over dimensional cargo? Is this is called over dimensional cargo. In that case, different time period has been mentioned. Other than over dimensional cargo, other than multimodal shipment in which at least one leg involves transport by ship. Other than these two cases, in general, every 200 kilometers 1 day. The 1 day reckoned from the day 1 of issuance of e-way bill EWB 01 part B generated uploaded to the next day midnight is 1 day. If it is more than 200 kilometers or part thereof, 1 additional day in case other than over dimensional cargo, other than multimodal shipment in which at least one leg is transport by ship. More than 200 kilometers or part thereof, each 200 kilometers 1 day or part thereof also 1 day. In case of over dimensional cargo or multimodal shipment in which at least one leg transport by ship up to 20 kilometers 1 day or part thereof also 1 day is as follows. Further, my dear friends, blocking of e-way bill generation facility extended to a person whose registration has been suspended. Obviously, if the registration has been suspended, who is not eligible to generate the e-way bill, and his e-way bill will be blocked, not valid. As simple as that. Further, my dear friends, coming to the chapter called Returns under the GST Amendments. Returns under the GST in which amendments? The time limit for furnishing the details of outward supplies in the form GSTR1 has been extended in the following cases. A registered person opting the QRMP scheme, they are required to submit the return 13th day of the succeeding such tax period. That means they are going to be filed the GSTR1 return quarterly on 13th of the succeeding month from the end of the relevant quarter. Others are considered 11th day of the month succeeding such tax period monthly assesses. Further, my dear friends, silent features of quarterly return filing and monthly payment of tax QRMP scheme. How to understand QRMP scheme? Quarterly return, monthly payment is one of the important amendment for your forthcoming exam of December 2021 CF final. QRMP scheme, quarterly return, monthly payment is applicable if the person aggregate annual turnover exceeds 5 crores in the preceding financial year. This QRMP scheme not applicable. That means QRMP scheme is applicable only when the registered person aggregate annual turnover does not exceed 5 crores in the preceding financial year. They only can think of to look into QRMP scheme. If exceeds 5 crores turnover, they should debar from the QRMP scheme from the next quarter onwards, because QRMP quarterly return, monthly payment scheme. That's why we'll explain to you in detailed manner. We too have here under the quarterly return, monthly payment scheme QRMP a concept called as invoice furnishing facility IFF, which is optional. First and second month of a quarter, such registered person will have invoice furnishing facility to furnish the details of outward supplies to a registered person as he may consider necessary between the first day of the succeeding month till the 13th day of the succeeding month. The first and second months of the quarter. The said details of outward supplies shall have not exceed the value of 50 lakhs in each month, not exceeding 50 lakhs worth of the value of invoices each month. You can submit by using IFF option, thereby to make available the recipient the credit in the same month rather than to wait for the quarter. Now I am presenting in a diagrammatic presentation the theoretical part of QRMP. Just look and understand, my dear friends. Previous year aggregate turnover less than or equal to 5 crores? No sir, means more than 5 crores. Then QRMP scheme not applicable. Sir, my turnover in the previous year less than or equal to 5 crores sir. Yes sir, goodbye. In that case, come and refer. QRMP scheme is optional, not compulsion, optional. If you wanted to opt, QRMP scheme can opt. A registered person can opt in for any quarter from first day of second month of the preceding quarter to the last day of the first month of the current quarter. Anytime you can be in between, anytime you can opt this. QRMP scheme is effective from 1st January 2021. If you opted the QRMP scheme, monthly payment of tax is there. There are two methods. One is called as fixed sum method, another one is called as self-assessment method. Which one you want, you can choose month-wise. In 1 month I want to go with fixed sum method, go ahead. In the second month of the same quarter I want to go with the self-assessment method, go ahead, is option to you. If I go with fixed sum method, my liability as follows. pay tax due in each of the 2 months of the quarter by depositing the due amount in the form GST PMT 06 by 25th day of the month succeeding such month. 35% of the tax paid in cash. 35% of the tax paid in cash in the preceding quarter where the return was furnished quarterly. This amount is auto populated in the return GST PMT 06 and pay off it. Otherwise, if it have been paid monthly in the previous period, 100% of tax paid in cash means after adjustment of input tax rate. Monthly how much paid immediately preceding month, that 100% tax will auto populate, pay off that money by 25th of the following month from the end of the relevant month for the first 2 months. April, May, June, 1 quarter. For the April month by 25th of May. For May month by 25th of June. Anyhow, June month year ending, that quarter ending, you are going to be paid by 24th of the succeeding month from the end of the relevant quarter by filing the GST 3B, or by 22nd of the following month from the end of the relevant quarter in case of few states where you are located. Which state you are located depends. That means to say that monthly payment 35% of the previous quarter tax paid by cash, or previous month monthly paying assessee what paid you by tax, by cash tax how much paid, 100% previous month tax will be paid in the current month first 2 months of the quarter by 25th of the following month from the end of the relevant month is called as fixed sum method, is auto populated in the return, that alone you can pay off. If I opted self-assessment tax method, irrespective of the previous period what I paid, what is the current period for the current month, what is my output tax liability in the current month, what is my input tax rate adjustment net liability pay by 25th of the following month for the first 2 months of the quarter. By using form GST PMT 06 challan, is a payment challan. Further, my dear friends, you have to file the quarterly return GSTR 1, GSTR 3B. GSTR 1 return, due date for GSTR 1 return by 13th day of the succeeding month, such tax period 13th day of the month succeeding tax period means quarterly, April, May, June, 13th of July due date. Registered person would be required to be furnished form GSTR 3B quarterly for the April, May, June by 22nd of the July or 24th of the July, depends upon the quarter. Further, my dear friends, am I required to pay interest for delay under QRMP? Yes. When means auto sum what is populated under fixed sum method, you not paid by 25th of the following month from the end of the month for the first 2 months of the quarter, then you have to pay the interest. Or otherwise, GSTR 3B return not filed by 22nd or 24th of the following month from the end of the relevant quarter, delay happened. That time you have to pay interest as referred under section 50 of the CGST Act. Whether there is any penalty applicable? Yes, if not filing of return, late fee penalties will apply. Further, my dear friends, now I am referring to you the amendments from the refund chapter. What is got amended here means, if you refer, my dear, no restriction on receipt of deemed exports supplies in availing the ITC of the tax paid on such supplies. In a case where recipient of deemed export supplies claims the refund on such supplies, there is no restriction on such recipient is availing the input tax credit of the same. If I am eligible to claim refund of the tax paid as a recipient of deemed exports, such a deemed export recipient can also claim that tax as an input tax credit. No restriction to claim input tax credit is a clarification of the CBIC. Then on the refund chapter, furthermore clarification given. Amended provision clarification. Generally, export turnover divided by total turnover multiplied by the net credit on input good input services will be qualified for formula refund in case of export under LUT. Input tax credit can be claimed refund. Export turnover numerator is now has some restriction. Zero rated value of supply shown in the export invoice or 1.5 times of the like goods cleared into DTA, among the two whichever is lesser value will be qualified as a numerator for export turnover purpose under the formula rule number 89 sub number 4. The same numerator export turnover will be formed part of as export turnover in the denominator in the total turnover concept. How to understand this? Clarification of the CBSE I brought to your notice. Just look and understand as our amendment. Win India Exports Private Limited is a supplier of taxable goods in both domestic market and overseas market. During the relevant period of refund, the details of his inward supply and outward supply details are shown in the table given below. Local clearances 200 rupees per unit, number of units supplied 5, turnover 1000. Export supply 350 rupees per unit, number of units supplied 5 units, turnover 1750, total turnover 2750. Now what is my numerator for the formula rule number 89 sub number 4 to claim the refund of input tax credit on inputs and input services for the tax period? Means numerator should be here local clearances 200 units multiplied by 5, 1000. Further, export turnover is 1750 or 1.5 times of 1.5 times of local clearances is equal to 1500. 1500 or 1750, whichever is lesser. Which is lesser here? The lesser value here is 1500. Is clear? That is 1.5 times of local clearances of the similar goods. 1500 will be export turnover. That means my numerator 1500 divided by total turnover 1000 plus 1500, 2500, but not 2750 is the meaning of that. If so, I got 162 is my refund amount from input tax credit out of 270. Got the clarity, my dear friends? I mentioned here actual export turnover are 1.5 times of the local clearances of similar product, whichever is less is 1500 is less. That will be numerator for my export in the given rule number 89 sub number 4 formula. And the same 1500 export turnover will be formed part of a numerator. Therefore, total turnover equal to 2500, which is equal to local clearances 1000 plus 1500 is export turnover, not the 1750. Further, my dear friends, referring the amendments in the chapter called TDS, Tax Deducted at Source, wherein the following amendments, as you are aware of that, when the tax deducted by deductor on behalf of the deductee inform to the deductee with respect to deduction of TDS in the form GSTR 7A within 5 days of crediting the payment to department, which is now not required. Amendment: not required to furnish the system generated TDS certificate in the form GSTR or 7A to the deductee within 5 days of crediting the payment of TDS by the deductor. Further, my dear friends, referring to you now part 2, where amendments with regard to customs and FTP, foreign trade policy, for our December 2021 examination. Just look and understand. I brought to your notice a diagrammatic presentation, the practical theory. Customs, import of goods at concessional duty, concessional rate of duty, rules 2017 as amended from time to time up to 30th April 2021, which is applicable for the December 2021 examination of CA final. In the given case, I am presenting the entire provisions by way of diagrammatic presentation. Now listen, my dear friends. C Limited is an importer cum exporter in Chennai, wanted to import the goods at concessional rate of duty rules. There must be a prior intimation to the department in duplicate to the Assistant Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner of Customs prior to import, a prior intimation to department AC or DC of Customs. What is going to be import over a period of 1 year from now under this concessional rate of duty scheme. I given few items here: estimated quantity, value of goods imported, particulars of the exemption or port of import, like that. The detailed information is as follows. Detailed information is mentioned here. Importer to give prior intimation as per the rule number 4, which is now got amended in the recent past, presenting what are the information should be provided. The importer shall provide information to the Deputy Commissioner or the Assistant Commissioner of the Customs, as the case may be, having jurisdiction over the premises where the imported goods shall be put to use for manufacture of the goods or for rendering output services, except after sales service, but the following about the following particulars, namely: 1. The name and address of the importer and the name and address of the job worker. Further, the goods produced or processed undertaken at the manufacturing facility of the importer and or his job worker, if any or both. The nature of a description of the imported goods used in the manufacture of the goods at the premises of the importer or the job worker, if any. The nature of the output service rendered utilizing imported goods. These details should be submitted at the time of importation, before importation, as a prior intimation to the AC or DC of Customs. Point number 1. Point number 2. Look here. One set to the Deputy Commissioner or Assistant Commissioner of Customs at the Customs Station of Importation should be also submit the details information. This intimation what you are going to be import. Further, import taken place. Where the duty liable to pay 20 lakhs. But I have been saved under the concessional rate of duty 18 lakhs. Paid only 2 lakhs, imported the goods. Thereafter, after importation, Here, submit a continuity bond with surety or security with the AC or DC to clear the goods at considered rate of duty by saving 18 lakhs of custom duty. Once the goods came to the premises of the importer, they said here, provide the information about the receipt of the imported goods in his premises within 2 days, excluding holidays, of such receipt to the jurisdictional customs officer by informing what? The information as follows. I mentioned here, the importer shall maintain on account of in such manner and clearly the following. What are they? Quantity and value of the goods imported, imported goods consumed, goods sent to the job worker. After this particular intimation, after the importation, within 2 days from the date of importation, within 2 days from the date of importation, excluding holidays, inform to department officer about the receipt of the goods. Having that, further, shall submit quarterly return for the to the DC or AC, namely Deputy Commissioner or Assistant Commissioner of Customs, having jurisdiction over the premises where the imported goods shall be put to use for manufacture by 10th day of the following month from the end of the relevant quarter. What details? The details are as follows, my dear sir. Quantity and value of the goods imported, further goods sent for job work, goods consumed by the importer for manufacture, goods has been re-exported if any, if it is a deficit or what we can call the goods are damaged one which is re-exported within 6 months from the date of importation, the details and the quantity available in the premises of every quarter should be submitted by 10th of the following month from the end of the relevant quarter by the importer. Further, my dear friends, here in the slide, point number 7, re-export or clearances of initialized or defective goods within 6 months from the date of import of goods on payment of import duty which is not paid on such imported goods. Simple to say that if the goods are imported which are defective imports should be returned back within 6 months from the date of importation without payment of import duty. Otherwise you are liable to pay import duty on such particular imports. If not, if you violated, department will issue the show cause notice to recover from you with the interest as referred under section 28 AA of the income of the Customs Act 1962, where the rate of interest is 15% per annum. Further, my dear friends, if the imported goods after manufacture, if exported within a specific period of time to outside India, you are a good boy. Whatever you executed a bond with the surety or security will be relinquished by the department, not required to pay duty what you have not paid so far under the considered rate of duty. In the given example, 18 lakhs which is not paid by you, not required to pay because you have been fulfilled your export obligation. It is what the customs import of goods at considered rate of duty. Here, if I import capital goods, this is what the point. If I import, directly I am presenting, look and understand. If I import the capital goods, my dear, in that case, how much duty saved? 18 lakhs. How much duty paid? 2 lakh. How much I import the capital goods? 100 lakhs. What is the duty? 20%, 20 lakhs. Duty saved 18 lakhs. If I import the capital goods under the considered rate of duty rules, being an importer cum exporter, I manufacture and fulfill the export obligation exported. Thereafter, this capital goods used for the purpose as specified in the exemption notification for the specified purpose. I use the capital goods and I exported my finished goods. The capital goods left over in the factory, can I dispose of? Yes. X Limited cleared the imported capital goods after having been used for the specified purpose on 30th November 2021 disposed of. In that case, now he has to pay import duty on the capital goods because he disposed of the capital goods. Therefore, what import duty has to pay means the capital goods imported when you put to use on 1st April for this specified purpose to produce the finished goods for export. After exportation, these capital goods are disposing of. In that case, from the date of put to use for specific purpose, 1st of April 2021 till the date of disposal, number of quarters, part of the quarters of full quarter, the first 4 quarters, 4% reduction. First 4 quarters, 4% reduction. Next 4 quarters, 3% reduction. Next 4 quarters, 4% reduction. First year, second year, third year. Thereafter, 4th and 5th year, 2.5% reduction. Thereafter, 2% reduction per quarter, which is a straight line basis. How to understand? I imported the capital goods and put to use for specific purpose on 1st April. 1st April 2021 to till the date of disposal, 30th November 2021. How many quarters? 3 quarters. Part of the quarters, full quarters. In that case, 4% for the first 4 quarters. Each quarter, 4%. Here 3 quarters. 100 lakhs multiplied by 4% for 3 quarters. 12 lakhs reduction. The capital goods value after depreciation is 88 lakhs. On 88 lakhs, I am liable to pay 20% of duty of customs, 17.6 lakhs. But I already paid how much? 2 lakhs. Deduct that. Balance 15.6 lakhs you pay now on account of clearances of the capital goods after fulfilling the specified purpose for which you imported and manufactured the finished goods with the help of these capital goods and exported. In that case, after fulfilling the export obligation, the imported capital goods at consignment of duty, now you can sell off. If you do so, this is the way in which you have to pay the duty on that. Got the clarity, my dear friends? And finally, we reach to a particular amendment. Foreign trade policy. What is amendment? Very simple. This foreign trade policy 2015 to 2020, which has been expired on 31st March 2020. Now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and other circumstances, this particular existing foreign trade policy 2015 to 2020 has been extended to 30th September 2021, resulting that is well applicable for our December 2021 examination. What is amendment? They amended here MEIS, Export from India Scheme, Merchandise Export from India Scheme, MEIS, from 1st January 2021 onwards, amended and replaced with the remission of duties and taxes on exported products, resulting that under the remission of duties and taxes on exported products, where we get benefit not only central taxes, duties, but also state duties and taxes, which was not covered earlier under MEIS. Now we can able to cover as an exporter if I suffered state level taxes, state level duties, as well as I am suffering at, I already suffered the central level duties and taxes. Together I can get the reward under the remission of duties and taxes on exported products. The scope of remission of duties, taxes on exported product has been widened than the MEIS. But MEIS or remission of duties, taxes on exported product, as the case may be, that can be used against payment of BCD on import of goods. If I am not able to use that, I can sell off to somebody else. Is a negotiable instrument, is an amendment. That's it, my dear friends. With this, I can say that amendments applicable for your December 2021 examination for CA Final Indirect Tax Laws, paper number 8, group number 2, concluded. All the best, my dear friends, for your examination. Ensure that to get highest marks among the 8 papers in indirect tax laws. All the best to one and all. Thank you, my dear friends.